What's your best piece of advice you give to? I know you do this with a lot of younger actresses.
Yeah. Well, it depends. I guess it depends what issues people are coming in with. It's a different era now for young actors. They have, they have these long lenses they didn't have on cameras and stuff. People out in the world with their iPhones that they didn't have when I was young. So we were able to do all sorts of silly things without anybody noticing. I think that's tough. I guess cherish your home life, your private life as much as possible, and guard it with your life in some ways. And then try to sit down, because all that standing is going to ruin your legs and your back, I guess. Yeah, those are two big ones. And I guess not worry so much.
Yeah.
That's a tough one for people to take in, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe there's little ways of helping people relax, like, meditate or something. But mostly when I say please relax, everybody's not able to do that one.
Welcome to the Actors Side today. Wow, she hardly needs any introduction. Winner of 2 Oscars, 5 nominations, 3 BAFTAs, 3 Golden Globes, an honorary Palme d'Or, and I could go on and on and on. I looked up all your awards on IMDb. It goes on for pages. It's pretty remarkable. This is Jodie Foster. Welcome.
Hey. Thank you.
What do you think of all that when you see all the accolades you have gotten in this career?
I never thought about it when I was young. I was just going. I was just going and going and going and moving forward. And then you do get to a moment where you start looking in the past and you think, wow, damn, that's a lot of mileage, I guess. It just seems like years and decades.
Yeah.
A lot of decades.
Well, it's been 6 decades, 60 years next year since your first gig, as
That's
they
right.
say, the Coppertone.
I was a Coppertone girl, that's true.
Does it feel like that, or did it just move by, or do you know?
Well, it feels like different people. I think there were different people that did different things. The first part of my career is pretty much my whole childhood. So that's just about, memories of being on movie sets and being with my mom and traveling around the country and doing this. I don't ever remember not doing acting, so I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And then there's, subsequent years, I think. This is the most exciting decade for sure, the 60s, being 60, I think.
It is.
I think it is, weirdly. I think there's a kind of contentedness and the kind of work that I get to do without anxiety. There isn't a lot of anxiety, I think. I accomplished a whole bunch of my little bucket list things, and I can just throw that out. And now it's really a lot of fun being part of a team and supporting people whose voices haven't been heard up until now, and contributing whatever, I guess, wisdom or experience that I might have, and still getting a good night's sleep.
Does being on a set, movies, faze you at all now, or are you relaxed? Is that your environment in a lot of ways?
It is my environment. I think it's the place I'm the most comfortable in some ways. But I always have that healthy little bit of is this going to be good? I want this to be good. I think I've learned that I really need to be committed and a little unsure. And the insecurity in some ways kind of is sort of helpful because it means that I care.
Yeah.
But there's something about the cameras and, you know, sound people and the lights and all of that that makes me feel safe, makes me feel like I'm among people that love me and I can be free because we're all moving towards the same goal. Everybody wants the movie to be good.
Yeah, exactly. I looked up, I love looking up lists of movies and
Okay.
what came in what order, and I noticed 1976.
Okay.
Wow. It was like, you were like working clearly nonstop, but it was like 4 movies. Taxi Driver with Scorsese,
Yes.
which got you your first Oscar nomination.
Bugsy
Bugsy
Malone.
Malone, one of the all-time great movies in my opinion. I love it working with Alan Parker.
Alan Parker.
The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane,
Mm-hmm.
and a movie that's lived on in so many ways, Freaky Friday. All
Yeah.
the same year.
Well, it's interesting. Well, you know, Scorsese took a long time to edit then, so actually his was much earlier than the other ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there was another movie I did that year called Echoes of a Summer, which wasn't a big hit, but
Oh,
was
so-
memorable for me.
like
So
fun.
all of that same time period.
Yeah.
I guess that's why somebody was asking, like, what do you do? What do you do summer vacations? And I was like, ooh, I always worked on summer vacation. Somehow I didn't have vacations. That's what I did, is I just worked, and that took me to, you know, Kansas and Ohio and Georgia and all sorts of places around the world. It's a bit of a blur, but
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved kind of being a gypsy
Your career was very smartly managed by your mother,
initially, yeah.
I think, because she said, I don't want her to be a typical child star who just flames out at
Right.
a certain age. So she let you do movies like Taxi Driver, where, you know, and things like that too.
Yeah.
Put you in the adult sphere too, a little bit, right?
Well, I have to be honest, I don't think that I really was picking my roles. I think not at 7 or 8. I mean, I think that she was a great movie buff. She loved foreign films, and she had ideas for me, maybe a vicarious thrill that she wanted me to be respected. She wanted me to have a career that had a lot of longevity and that where I was taken seriously, and maybe because she wasn't, or because she came from kind of a pre-feminist era.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like, this child will, you know, she will be able to do the things that I wasn't able to do, and
Yeah.
that really, I really benefited from that.
That's amazing.
But it meant that her tastes guided the films that I did. She was a big fan of Scorsese. We had seen Mean Streets many times together, and that was what we did. I came home from school, and she took me to a movie. So, especially foreign films, she was interested in.
Yeah, and you know, so you then became a director at a certain point too. Were you always sort of fascinated by what was going on while you were in front of the camera?
Always was. I think maybe more interested in that than the acting. I like to know, because I loved films, I wanted to know how they were made and how they were put together and what were everybody's jobs. And maybe because I didn't really understand the craft of acting at all as a young person, I think I didn't really, I just thought people were telling me to act natural. That's what they would say. They'd be like, act naturally, act naturally. So until I did Taxi Driver, I think I didn't really understand what it was to build a character, because nobody had faith that I would understand that.
Yeah.
And their only directions for me were just be yourself. And then, so I was very busy looking at other things besides the acting, because the acting didn't seem that challenging,
Yeah.
you know.
Hey, you quit for a while. You went to Yale. You did.
Yeah, I did. I directed a short when I was maybe 14 or 15, and then I thought this career thing would be over by the time I was 20. I figured it would be over, 18. That's what I was told. And then I thought, well, as long as I'm going to give it one more try, because it's something that I love, but otherwise I'm going to do this grad school thing
Right.
and possibly write or possibly be a professor. That's what I thought I would do. And the acting kind of took over. I still knew that I wanted to direct. I knew that that was something that I always wanted to do. So yeah, I guess I kind of fell into it.
And then The Accused comes along, and then right after that, Silence of the Lambs, and you're in a whole different league.
Yeah, those were the bigger movies. I mean, both Oscar nominations for those 2 films.
2 Oscars wins.
Yeah, 2 Oscar wins. That's right. That's right.
Got to check that math.
Yeah, big moments. And I think my mom was smart enough to say, use these wonderful honors in order to get what you want. And what I really wanted to do was direct. So after The Accused, I was able to make a deal with Orion. I found a project that I wanted to direct. I brought it to Orion and I said, if I act in it, will you let me direct? They said yes. We got it financed, and I did Little Man Tate that same year, right after Silence.
Terrific film. Great film directorial debut, too.
Thank you.
Really good script. Was it Scott?
Scott Frank.
Frank, right?
Yeah, my good buddy, who went on to be an extraordinary director, producer, showrunner, everything.
Amazing. So Silence of the Lambs has been compared a little bit to True Detective Night Country. Have you seen that? People say, wait a minute, there is some of Silence of the Lambs. Did you realize that when you first saw the script?
I had an inkling. I felt like they lived in the same genre in some ways, and that there was inspiration there. But as Issa Lopez, the showrunner, writer, director of all the episodes, has said, the original True Detective, season 1,
Matthew McConaughey,
with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, Nick Pizzolatto producing, really took a lot of inspiration from Seven and from Silence of the Lambs. So Silence of the Lambs, then came Seven. Fincher took inspiration from Silence of the Lambs. Then came True Detective 1. And then hopefully, we are the next incarnation.
So there's some symmetry there.
Yeah, but I think broadly, it's a mythic. It has mythology as its foundation.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the strongest reason why they all kind of follow that same path. That there's somebody out there that we're trying to find, and then we have to look through our own psychology, our own tortured psychology, in order to find the clues that we need as detectives.
You worked with Fincher, obviously.
I did.
Panic Room before he did Seven. So was
that after he did Seven? But yes.
You've done so many movies with so many iconic directors and great directors. He's an interesting one, isn't he?
I learned more from David Fincher than anybody I've ever worked with in my life.
Right? Wow.
I've never met anybody that knows filmmaking more than him, and he can do any job on any set, including props, acting. He can do it all.
Wow.
So he's the most prepared director I've ever worked with. And sometimes, I would say, maybe that gets in the way. Who knows? Because he's so prepared. His films have a very specific style. His television has such a specific style. He was the exec producer on House of Cards and Manhunter.
Sure. And you directed one of those.
I did. Yeah. I'm very lucky to direct one of those. And there's nothing like working with somebody that has such a clear picture for where it's headed.
That's interesting. Does he take a lot of takes? I always
yes, he does. But in fairness, on Panic Room, for everything that Kristen Stewart and myself, the scenes that we were in, I think we did the least amount of takes. So
really?
he was nicer to us. He tortured us a lot less than the guys. The guys had to do hundreds of takes all the time.
Well, now with Issa, who is your director on True Detective.
Yes.
She's like the first English language thing. She's a Mexican director.
Yes.
And she never worked in the U.S., I know, before. So is that a roll of the dice for you as an actor to say, okay, I'm putting myself in your hands here? Or
I've worked with a lot of first-time directors, and I had gotten to the place where I said, that's it. I'm not working with any more first-time directors. And then I keep getting kind of like, weaseled back into it, because it's always a little bit of a roll of the dice. Yeah. But the second that I met Issa, I knew that she was the right vision for the film, and that she had a really clear picture of where she was going. And I think she might be my favorite director I've ever worked with.
Wow.
Just personally, of course, because she's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy having dinner with her. But also, I think she really has a tremendous balance between knowing where she's going, but also giving you freedom. So she's playful and she's experimental and can be quite emotionally understanding the characters, and yet has a clear plan, a clear objective. Really understands her technology. So it's kind of a great combination of two things.
With the exception of Fiona, it's mostly a younger cast.
Yes.
I don't want to say inexperienced or experience in life, and that's a great thing for acting.
Right.
But I think that might be challenging too, to work with actors who have never really done much of it.
Yeah, and fun, and a lot of fun. And it is fun to be able to contribute what you contribute. And for me, that's really whatever wisdom I have about not worrying about it. I come into set and, Finn Bennett, for example, who's wonderful in the film, plays Pryor, my protege. he would do a little bit of worrying. There was a lot of worrying going on with Finn. And in fairness, he's British, and you would never know that he was British. And he's, his American accent is flawless. And he did a lot of worrying, and I had to like stop him and just be like, stop worrying. It's all gonna be fine. Stop running your lines. We're not running your lines anymore. I think that's my one contribution, really.
Is it? Do you have a process? This is called the actor's side, so
Yes.
we like to talk about acting.
Okay.
I do. I'm always interested in actors and things. And do you have a certain process or things you go on a set and say, I hope they don't try to railroad me here?
Sure, I'm sure there's things you hate, you don't like. You don't like to be directed a certain way, for example. But I don't like things to be too precious because I find that makes me nervous. So the second there's a lot of fear injected into it, or if the director starts getting too earnest or too precious about things, tries to get in your head and tries to go there with you, that is, for me, is like a chill. A chill comes on in a room. I like it to be light. I like the director in some ways to have an intellectual process with me, to explain things to me, and then let me do what I do.
Yes.
So I don't want them to do the acting. I like to do the acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just like to not worry so much. Yeah, and I like to be told everything in terms of the mechanics and the technicianship and stuff like that.
Conversely, you as a director directing actors, do you find you are what they call an actor's director?
I think I am not.
Not?
Strangely and sadly for me, I don't think I'm an actor's director, and I only learned that over time because I don't really have any training, and sometimes I don't know how actors do it. I often look at the performances and I just think, oh, that's amazing. I could never do that. How did they do that? So I really trust the actors to bring their ideas to the table. And what I can do for them is to be incredibly well prepared and be flexible so that I know I've got it on film in the first and second take so that they can be spontaneous and go fast. Because I don't like to wear people down.
It's instinctual with you, I can tell. You say you don't have any training?
Yeah.
You have an acting coach you ever work with?
Nope.
Nothing.
No.
It's amazing.
No, but you come up with your own ways of doing things,
Yeah.
in the same way. You also learn to respect other people's processes. So some people, they need a certain environment in order to be confident and in order to not worry.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to keep my mess out of there, right? Stop cracking jokes, and if I want to crack a joke, go over there, or just to try to honor their environment.
That's so cool, because playing somebody like Liz Danvers,
Yes.
it's a very complex character. She's got all kinds of things going on. She slept with every guy in town.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so I would say
Yes.
getting that in psyche can't be that easy. How did you do it? Do you have to have some empathy or some sort
Oh,
of
of
thing?
course, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know that there is a character I don't empathize
You
with. I
have
mean,
to,
I think
yeah.
you do, even the bad guys.
Yeah.
I think you have to understand their motivations, and that's part of the beauty of the process, is, especially as a director, where each one of the characters is a part of you, and you have to know why he would wear red tennis shoes. Why would the killer wear red tennis shoes, or what part of his past does that address? And I love that psychology work. That being said, a lot of it is instinctual, and very rarely I will. I'll look at the script and say, this works or this doesn't work for me. I can always have reasons why it doesn't work for me. This choice doesn't work for me. But sometimes I just have to say, that one doesn't move me. So I'm the one that's got to play it. And occasionally I just have to go, can't say it, doesn't move me. And I really get that when an actor does that with me. When an actor comes into the room and says, I can't find my way in, then I'm like, great, we're going to find a different way.
Yeah.
And that process of being flexible sometimes is not easy for writer-directors, for example, because they spend a lot of time in their hotel rooms by themselves, and they're not used to sharing.
Yeah. Right. And fiddling with it. And,
Exactly. With other people in the room.
Right.
Every person that breathes on the script, every person that breathes in that room of 170 crew members influences what ends up on screen.
Yeah.
And you have to love that. I think you have to really love that. Even if you tried for it to be this pure thing that came only from you, that's never going to work.
Do you do improvisation in a lot of your recent things?
You know, I don't, because I'm a terrible improviser. I really love the words, and I like getting the words right ahead of time and making those changes. But sometimes people throw things at me, and I just have to go there. There are people who are really gifted with improv. My son is one of them, and when I see him do it, I'm just like, I don't know how they do it, but it's like a chemical goes off,
Right.
and panic and anxiety in them breeds creativity.
Wow.
And it, like, one part of their brain goes away, and then they're able to have this free brain. For me, opposite.
That's interesting.
I just suddenly go, so it's not my forte.
Is your son following you into this business? Did I just get a sense that
I have one.
we've got another one coming up?
Yes. We have one actor who's decidedly more funny than me. So he really likes comedy and wit, very witty, and that's his path.
And since you started at such a young age, have you been encouraging him to do it, knowing everything you know about this business?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really want to tell me until at least in the middle of high school. And then, you know, who knows where he'll end up in the business. I know he loves films. I know he loves television. He loves writing and all of that. So all of this is really just about growing up and learning about yourself. So I'm definitely encouraging him.
That's wild. Before we go, I
Sure.
have to ask you about this scene that you did.
Okay.
I wrote down some of the scenes that I watched in there.
Okay.
First of all, you're in a bunch of ice caves.
Yes.
And the stuff that's coming out, and
Yeah.
was it really that cold there?
No. Not the ice caves. The ice cave were all manufactured on a soundstage
Oh, you're on a soundstage.
because we couldn't. It would not be safe, and there was no way to get cameras or lights or be able to attach equipment in a real ice cave. That wouldn't be possible. That's you identified probably the only thing that was not real.
I was just wondering because
it's the only thing
very
that's not
good
real.
acting.
Thank you. Yeah, Kaylee and I did some cold acting. We did some cold acting.
Because this is the coldest. It's all dark all the time.
Yeah, but we spent so much time outside in the middle of the night, below zero conditions, that we had some good sense memory about what it was to be cold.
What it's like.
So, you know, we could be like, remember in, February when we were up in Akureyri and you said you couldn't feel any part of your body?
Oh my
Let's
God.
just remember that.
What about when you fall into the sea?
Yes.
And
Okay.
that looked dangerous. And you're doing your own stunts there, right? Is that you?
Yeah, well, yeah. That was a tank, though, because
Yeah.
obviously we would not be able to do sub-zero conditions on
That I
ice.
knew. I had to think.
But that was probably the scariest thing I did on the show, for
Was it
sure.
really?
Mostly because it was entirely in the dark, and I wear glasses. I wear really thick glasses, and I couldn't have contact lenses, and they weighted me because they didn't want me to float up, so I had to sink. So there was no way that and it was quite long. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 50 feet or 60 feet. So there was no way that I could get to the top. And even if I got to the top, because I couldn't see, there was no way I could find the one hole where everything else was plastic.
Oh my God.
So they had to, when they said cut, they had to have a guy come, swim really fast, and then bring me up to the surface.
Because you can't see anything.
No, I can't.
Wow.
Couldn't see.
In that. It's such a great shot. This
you.
director has done some stunning
Yes.
work on this.
Yes, and Florian Hofmeister, our DP, extraordinary DP. Not easy to shoot at night in those conditions, and he made a spectacularly looking tonal film.
So where does this stand in your career? It's such an interesting project. It's about so many things.
Right.
It's about racism in many ways. It's about male egos out of control and doing things, which I think is happening around the world with male leaders right now who have a certain thing. On and on with the things, the indigenous community. Of course, your wonderful co-star and partner in his,
Kaylee Reese.
What is it about what this show says that attracts you and that you want people to see?
I don't know if it's just because it's the last thing that I did, but in some ways, the last thing is always the best thing that you've ever done and probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I'm so proud of it because I'm kind of in awe of the storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm so moved by how deep it goes. And there's so much to say about it. And it's a place that we've never seen before, that we didn't know before. And there's
about pollution and everything we're doing to our own.
And there's even an acknowledgement, and I won't tell you how because it's the denouement of the show, but there's an acknowledgement about how blind we are as viewers. how we never saw it coming, that we never noticed that that the truth was invisible to us because we don't think much of it. To me, I think that was a really important message, and me as the racist Karen in the show, I thought was always on my mind. Like, how are we gonna create a first-person Native perspective, and really have the audience understand that they've been blind. You know.
Exactly, and she, even with her daughter, the way she treats her. And
Yes. All about fear, motherhood. I understood that character. I understand my character. I don't have to love her all the time because she's very unlovable a lot of the time. But I really understood that so much of what propels her is fear. The same way my mom had fears for me. She was scared that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, that I would be left alone, and then I would, that if I don't know, these fears that we hold on to from childhood. And I think that's true of Liz as well.
Well, your mother should know. Wherever she is. You've done okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Jodie Foster has done okay. True Detective Night Country is on HBO and HBO Max, or they call it Max, now anytime, and a lot of Emmy buzz. Thank you so much for coming out talking to us today on the Actor Side, Jodie Foster.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks.